3.
Rangeland is also often misinterpreted as a single type of land, when in fact rangelands are actually any grassland, shrubland, woodland, and wetland and desert that is grazed by domestic or wild animals. It does not include forests lacking grazable understory, barren desert, farmland, or land covered by solid rock. Rangelands in Idaho include prairies, sagebrush steppe, cold desert shrubland, juniper woodland, aspen savannas, mountain meadows, and streamside riparian communities. The Idaho Rangeland Resource Commission, or IRRC, is in charge of sustaining and enhancing rangeland and managing ecological sites. This state agency uses and permits rangeland for the uses of livestock grazing, recreation, and conservation. They also implement strategies to ensure a desired use for land, such as controlled burning. Steady state and transition models are also used by the IRRC to determine the successional dynamics of rangeland vegetation over time. By using box arrows to show which way the land will be progressing, these models can be used to determine the state of the land at any point in time. In a way, giving the IRRC a way to predict and plan out rangeland management. And this is important because the economic importance of rangeland to Idaho is huge. It covers over 22 million acres of the state, encloses 90% of the population, and grazing alone produces around $400 million per year. Other uses like recreation also generate millions. It is an inseparable part of Idaho's economy. And to present on wildfires is Adam.
Wildfire is defined as any fire that is burning in a natural environment. There are 3 types of wildfires: crown fires, surface fires, and ground fires. Crown fires burn up the entire length of the tree. Surface fires burn only the surface litter and duct, which are the easiest fires to put out because they cause less damage to the forest. Ground fires occur in deep humus and dead vegetation that becomes dry enough to burn. 90% of all fires in the last decade have been caused by humans, but 10% has also been caused by natural disasters and lightning strikes. 1.2 million acres of U.S. woodland burn each year due to wildfires. Some of the causes of, or some ways to prevent, are comply with all local laws and regulations, check the weather, do not burn anything unusual or combustible, only burn things that are easy to control for burning, don't throw away any lit flammables such as cigarettes, be smart when you're using fire. One method of putting out a fire is fighting fire with fire. So they would burn the live vegetation when that's in the path of the wildfire so that it burns out and that the fire just dies out. Overall, fires is a catalyst for promoting biological diversity and maintaining a healthy ecosystem. Now, noxious weed dispensing.
Okay, so a noxious weed is a weed which is harmful to the environment and its animals. And the Idaho State Department of Agriculture, it protects the state's resources from those plants. And the cooperative weed area, it manages invasive species and in a specific area. And the free forage and straw program stops the spreading and the introduction of the weeds through forage and straw. And some of the weeds found there are hound's-tongue, knapweed, and horary elysium. And the requirements and impacts of these laws is that it leads to economic damage and extinction of the plants already there, and reduces habitat, and it heightens the awareness among all of the people there already, and it restores the infested lands and waters to a healthy and resilient condition. Now here's Ryan.
So next is livestock use as a rangeland management tool. And one of the ways to do it is by using grazing systems. There are 3 popular types of grazing systems, which would be continuous, rotational, and mob grazing. Continuous grazing is where there's one large pasture and the livestock are allowed to free roam on the pasture grazing. This can harm the rangeland because they may overgraze. The next is rotational grazing systems, where the whole pasture is divided into subpastures and the livestock are allowed to be in one area for a specific amount of time, and then they rotate to the next field when the part of the pasture that they are in is about to be overgrazed, so it does not hurt the rangeland. And the next is mob grazing, where a large amount of livestock is in a small area for a short period of time. So they evenly graze the land because of how many of them there are, but they are rotated off before it causes harm to the rangelands. One of the ways that Iowa was able to manage this is the Taylor Grazing Act of 1934, which regulated grazing on public land to improve rangeland conditions and regulate their use. The main 4 questions to consider when using livestock as a rangeland management tool would be which animals to use, and that is based on their dietary needs and the breed of the animal. So sheep, goats, and cows all have different needs in their diet, and they will all use different types of grass, and even within those species, different breeds will be reactive to different types of grasses. So there are better breeds to use of specific species for certain areas. The next is how many animals to use, and that all depends on the stocking rate of the land, and that depends on how many animals the land can comfortably hold before the point that they will destroy the rangeland. The next is when to graze and for how long. That depends on the plant physiology, whether the plant is weak or strong, and it's going to be able to withstand the grazing for a long period of time or a short period of time, and animals need to be rotated off of that land before they cause harm to it. And the last question is where, and that also depends on the vegetation type and the type of rangelands. Next is Nini with wildlife management.
So livestock and wildlife management go hand in hand together, and as these two go together, this means that the needs of the animals must be met. And by meeting these needs, we must look at the food, water, cover, and space of the area. And as looking at the factors of this, we need to focus on the carrying capacity of the area, and by looking at the plants growing within the region. And for Idaho, most of the plants being grown are the perennial plants, which are grown from year to year. And as these plants are managed, it would be in the best interest of those within the region trying to manage the rangelands to cooperate with the hunters, landowners, and other environmental organizations in order to preserve the region. And as many of these much of the cooperation is in need, hunting restrictions within the area are implemented and other restrictions as well. And by limiting the hunting restrictions within the area, this will allow for much of the wildlife to thrive. And it would be crucial for many of the helpers within the region to look towards mule deer habitats, because much of their environment or much of their habitat is focused on a diverse, or rather a variety of environmental needs that much of the organisms within the areas would need. And so back to Ethan with our plan.
So our 10-year multi-use resource management plan is pretty much a rotation system, one that would be commonly used on a farmland. So what we found is that 22 million acres of Idaho is rangeland, and livestock in Idaho requires about 11.5 million acres of this land. So what we created was a rotation system that allows 12 million acres to livestock grazing, 5 million acres for any recreation use such as hiking or hunting, and then 5 million acres would be saved and conserved. Each phase is allotted about 2 years and 3 months to run until it is rotated clockwise, and this rotation is allotted 3 months in terms of allowing systems to rotate, and the 10-year multiple-use resource management plan would be run and overseen by the Bureau of Land Management, along with a board of Idaho rangeland community members. And there's many controversy solutions to this system. It would meet the needs and supports the economy of livestock producers. In fact, since 11.5 million acres is required for livestock in Idaho, 12 million acres would actually give space for the economy to grow. It also gives space and time for land regeneration and conservation, allows plenty of space for recreation usage.
Continued rotation grazing would control noxious weed growth and cut back excessive vegetation growth to help prevent forest fires as well. Thank you.